We are back here to go ahead and reassemble this LG L9. I have my back of my phone here. I went ahead and transferred some of the stuff over. I want to make sure that any of the metal tape we have we put on some backing as well. And I transferred the sticker for my IMEI.
I also transferred over my IMEI number
from the back portion of my last phone. The mid-frame that was busted.
The next thing
we have our new
put my
glass display here
onto
our frame, and we're going to go ahead and tape
we are going to be
back
using some
together.
3M tape. I actually have two different tapes. I have 1mm
here.
I'm
I have two
on
different
this
portions. A
side.
thinner one to go down the sides here, and then a thicker
tape
one to
for
do the tops and the bottom to make sure that it really adheres this frame to the glasses. That's what really holds this in place. Now the trick to this is we're putting on a pretty decent amount of tape as we go ahead and tape this back together. You can buy this 3M double-sided sticky tape from eBay for pretty cheap. This is the 1mm that I'm using on the frame here. You'll get more than enough than you need for just buy the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5mm tape as well for the width of the tape. It doesn't really matter. I like the ones because it saves me time from doing a lot of these thinner bezel repairs. We'll go ahead and just line the entire phone frame with this tape. It'll take a few seconds, but I'll show you exactly what I do as I go through here.
And he found out then that Lee is living at some address in Oak Cliff, and neither of them are.
Just use my dental pick to make sure that I get a nice tight stick onto the frame, so when I go to pull this back up, it definitely stays stuck down to the frame here. Just using a standard pair of scissors to make sure I cut it to close to the right length, and then possibly a razor knife or some sort of a razor blade to help keep it nice and sharp on the ends, and then cut it to fit where I need to.
Oswald had written to the Soviet embassy, and in it he had mentioned that he had been to Mexico City.
The letter makes clear that Oswald had traveled to Mexico City at the end of September and early October, that he had gone to the Cuban consulate and to the Soviet embassy.
And while at the Soviet embassy, he had talked to KGB officials, including Valery Kosakov, who was in charge of political assassinations in the Western Hemisphere. Antenna went up on Hosty. Red lights began to blink. Obviously, this was a potential international
Alright,
situation.
looking pretty good.
This was only 1 year after the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Start using a little bit of the thicker tape here to do the top and the bottom with a lot more space to adhere the glass to the frame. Take you less time if you use a little bit thicker tape on these portions.
He races over to the municipal building because he needs to find out whether Lee Harvey Oswald is actually part of a larger.
Want to make sure you get it nice and into the corner.
So when he walks
make sure it gets nice and stuck down here as well.
What he has on his mind is that man sitting in front of him is a trained assassin sent to kill the President of the United States.
You're the one who's been bothering my wife. You're the one who's been persecuting my wife.
Captain Fritz immediately tried to comment on it.
You want to make sure you get it as close to the bottom as possible. You don't want to wrap up. Sometimes the tape will go up the kind of the side of the frame. And when you go to insert the glass into it, it doesn't want to stick, or you get a little extra overlap, which is what you don't want. You want to make sure you get it just right, covering the majority of the portions of the phone, ensuring that there's definitely enough space on the side so the glass fits back into the right fit. Now if you're watching the disassembly video, you saw that I broke this frame here. I super glued it back together so I can show you how to do this. It actually is pretty strong, so I'm not too concerned about it breaking.
Where were you at that time?
Oswald says I was eating my lunch.
You left the boat depositories. Why did you leave?
This LG L9's been through definitely a lot in its time. It's not in the best of shape, which is why I'm fixing it up.
How did you end up out in Oak Cliff? Well, I got on a bus and went back to my room and I changed my trousers and I got a gun and then I went to the movies.
Fritz says, why would you be carrying a gun? He said, because I felt like it. Now, when the officers apprehended you, did you pull the pistol?
Oswald kind of confessed. He says, yeah, I did. I pulled out my gun. I was wrong to do that, and the police officer clocked me for doing it. I guess I had it coming. So now Fritz has Oswald admitting that he had a pistol at the movie theater and he tried to.
Alright, starting with the top portion here.
Did you bring a
Just
rifle?
ensuring that I'm not going to overlap the tape here. I'm just going to cut it to the right size to fit.
Did you own a rifle? No.
Did you ever own a rifle?
No.
You want to cover up any of the holes in the frame or the speaker grill here. So it'll affect your front-facing camera as well as the headset speaker. So make sure you don't cover any of the grill portion or any of the other holes at the bottom where the buttons or the home button would fit as well.
Did you shoot the president?
No, I emphatically deny that.
What about the officer in Oak Cliff? Did you shoot him?
He said, no, I deny that too. Suddenly, you're beginning to see that Oswald is not your typical prisoner that's ready to break down. He was a pretty hard nut to crack.
Oswald was willing to talk. He was willing to go so far, but when we got close to those murders, it was no, flat denial every...
Small portion here to cover up some of the gaps and make sure I get as much surface area of the phone covered as
Fritz has the
possible.
contents of Oswald's wallet in front of him on his desk. So he looks at this one card that says fair play for Cuba. He says, so Lee, tell me about this card.
Oswald looks over at Hosty. Why don't you ask him? He seems to know everything about me.
Hosty just can't contain himself anymore because he needs to know about Mexico City. So he says to Fritz, he doesn't address Oswald directly.
Just ask him if he's ever been to Mexico City.
Lee, have you ever been to Mexico City?
Yeah, sure, I've been to Mexico. He said, back
Little
when I
strip
was in
up here at the
Marines,
top.
some of my buddies and I used to go down to Tijuana. Hosty said, not Mexico, Mexico City.
The trick of this is first I'm giving this phone back to, might possibly drop it again. And in that case, I want to make sure that the glass doesn't pop off of the phone. So making sure that all of the parts where you can tape it down do have that adhesion. That way in the future you don't going through the same exact repair again.
Hosty thinks this is Achilles' heel. If you can only ask him about what he was doing in Mexico City a few weeks earlier, why he was at the Soviet embassy, why he was at the Cuban consulate, he believes he finally has him. He's broken through that veneer.
Alright, pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and start pulling up some of the tape here.
The door swings open, and an officer says to Fritz, we're ready for the first lineup.
One of the tricky things with this tape is you don't press it down very well. When you try to pull this black off, or the back off of it, it will kind of pull some of the tape up and it'll bunch up. And that way your glass won't sit exactly flush when you put it back in. So be careful of that. If it does bunch up, cut that portion off and just put some new tape down. If you possibly can, smooth it out like I just did. You want to make sure that there's no ripples underneath the glass.
Years have come and years have gone, but one has stayed the course. Sam Adams, Boston Lager, independently crafted from the finest everything since 1984. Don't change for us. We won't change for you. Sam Adams, Boston Lager. Declare your independence from common beer.
Neil Lane designs for Hollywood's biggest stars.
Who is it for? It's from Becky.
Now he designs for the star in your life. Neil Lane Bridal.
Just a few more backing here to go, and we'll go ahead and stick our glass onto this frame.
Every kiss begins with K.
It's our mission at the Family Dinner Project to support families in getting back to the table. One day we get this incredible call from Cheerios saying, what about breakfast? Together we've created the Family Breakfast Project to help families begin their day together over breakfast.
Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I got this. Oh, no, look at it. No, let me get this. Seriously, hey, let me get it. I don't want you to pay for that. It's not happening, honey.
Fill off the backing.
Driving bonus check from Allstate last week, and it's her treat.
What about a tip?
Oh, here's one. With an Allstate agent.
Nice. Switch to
I find that putting these little white pads on actually is easier after you hear the frame. This is the first time that I've done this exact phone, so I wasn't exactly sure. And really the goal of these are is that the light that shows through the bottom of the phone will actually be white instead of a clear color. And that's really all it is to give the backlight of these keys that white feel instead of clear.
Drink. It actually looks like chicken inside because it's actually chicken. It's white. crispy?
Yeah, that's it.
Juicy?
Nailed it.
Do it. 4 combos under $4.
And we'll probably be back again tomorrow.
Let's just put them in there as well.
Realizing that it might actually just be easier
Could be hectic. Angie's List saves me a lot of time. After reading all the reviews,
to
I know
stick them in.
Well,
choice.
that's what I'm
Online,
going to do.
I put the
the first time. With honest
frame back
reviews,
on here.
720 local
Save you guys some time that way.
with these two is
Watch my mistake.
full-time job. I don't have time for unreliable.
Alright.
Angie's List.
So you see this right here.
For over
I'm
18
going to bend this
years,
flex cable down a little bit, make sure that it fits in its right spots.
Join today.
Stick the frame down. I'm going to go around the entire frame, making sure that it gets nice and stuck on there. Make sure that it's sitting flush.
Cooling crystals, icebreakers.
Don't want this to pop back out, and I like to kind of set it on a flat surface and push in on some of the areas where the tape's at.
I really want this to be cured very well.
Showtime now. Showtime. Brace yourself. Order Showtime now and save $5 a month. Call 1-800.
Alright, here we go.
I won this HDTV
We're looking
for less
good.
than $50 on Quibbit. I won mine
Put our little light
$87.13.
portions in here. It'll fit a lot easier into the frame now that I've taped it on there. Makes it a lot easier. Now you're going to watch the video, kind of skip here for a second. I tried to start reassembling the phone with the home button being put in, so I cut that portion out. That's one thing you want to make sure you do before you start reassembling your phone, is making sure that your home button definitely is in the right portion here. So kind of cut it to fit. Now we're at the home button. We're going to put it back into its right spot on the phone before I start reassembling it. Has a couple of prongs down here at the bottom that are kind of an easy fit. There's a little grommet for the proximity sensor up here at the top. I was going to try to put it in beforehand, but it looks like it's going to be easy to put in after, so set it aside for now. Alright, it's looking pretty good. Here's our LCD. Looking nice and clean. We're going to slide this in, so make sure the ribbon cable pops in. And it's usually a little bit too big for the mid-frame, so make sure you get all pieces in before you start pulling really hard. Get it to sit nice and flush. Excellent.
In your name we pray. Amen.
Looks like there might be a little speck of dust on there. You definitely want to make sure it's clean before you put your frame back on. You want the phone to look nice and clean. That's what all this hard work is for.
William, do you take Beulah, Lisa, Wilkes to be your lawfully wedded wife?
Alright, now with that nice and clean, we're going to go ahead and put our... oh, actually, forgot my front-facing camera. Just going to slide that back into its right spot here. It's definitely important before you snap your frame into place.
Well, I'm sorry, but I just think if we both have doubts about this
Good.
thing...
Go ahead and make sure the home key's still in there, in its right spot. Go ahead and start popping the frame back into mid-frame of the phone. Make sure that your LCD and your digitizer cables are pulled all the way through. You need all the slack you can get to put your logic board back in.
I think maybe we just rushed into this thing too fast.
Alright. Well, I guess we shouldn't get married then, should we?
Alright, just going to try to stick this cable back down a little bit, get it in place underneath where the logic board's going to sit.
Yeah.
Alright, here we go. Now would be a great time to put your proximity sensor grommet in that I forgot to put into this phone. It's sitting at the upper left-hand corner of the screen there. This sits right underneath the top left-hand side of the phone.
I'll save it for that 50
Make sure all of your ribbon cables are out and clear.
Not so fast, Will. I always thought that a man only got one chance at happiness. And then I met you.
Alright, and here is
United 10,000
our
feet
power
in the air.
button area. You want to make sure that this sits kind of into, it's got a little two-pronged slot where it slides into the right spot. Make sure that the button feeds into the left and right hand side.
Yes, Fred, I will.
All right.
If my son...
Just making sure the logic board is nice and snug, and
No, absolutely not.
make
You
sure
said that
everything's
me and
lined
Lisa
up.
were rushing too fast? I mean, y'all got to take some time to think about this.
DeVore's right. We should think about this.
Yeah.
Did you think about it?
Yeah.
Me too. Let's get married.
Start putting our connectors down. Although I will have to pry them all back up, since I've got that proximity sensor grommet back in. Alright, here we put down our digitizer ribbon cable.
You're going to need your bouquet.
I'm going to push this adhesive down on top of this metal plate here, so the cable will stay in its place.
Wrap on, Rev.
Putting our rear-facing camera back in, and putting its cable back onto the logic board. I'm going to put in the bottom charging port and antenna cable down here at the bottom. We have a couple screws that will hold this port into the bottom, and also where this cable screws into the right hand side here. And this little black clip, we're going to push backwards and then lay it flat.
The all-new Highlander. Toyota. Let's go places.
Step right up and spin the
We'll put our screws back in to hold the charging port down as well.
Right now at Popeyes, you get 3 of a kind for $3.99. For $3.99, you get 3 whole wings and a biscuit, or 3 tenders
Shit.
and a biscuit,
Again.
or a leg, a wing, a
Every
thigh,
freaking
and a
time.
biscuit. And you know this is not just
See, I
some
forgot this grommet
Oh,
here.
I'm like, crap, there's my rubber grommet.
3 of a kind for
That means I'm going to have to flip up all these connectors that I just pushed down again and just put it back into place. So it's not the end of the world. It's a fairly easy fix, but definitely a waste of my time, and kind of makes me look like a fool as I'm trying to tell you how to do this. I'm going to prop these up. We're going to pull the logic board up just a little bit here.
New L9 Smart Shade Makeup made it easy with just
More
3 skin
connectors
tone
on
adjusting
two.
shades to choose from, not hundreds.
New L9 Tone Mimic technology intuitively transforms to your skin tone.
L9 Smart Shade. It's my one and only.
I'm going to set it aside while I pop this in.
100. 100% greed. 100% So, you might not believe it's 100 calories. You'll play Greek 100.
It does have a side that has a larger hole than the other side. The smaller hole will face forward into the phone, and the larger hole facing back towards the logic board.
There's only one way to celebrate this unique similarity. Witness the cheesesteak shuffle.
Cheesesteak, cheesesteak. It's the cheesesteak shuffle, huh? Every day, all day, cheesesteak.
Alright, there we go. We'll put our logic board back into place and start putting our connectors back onto the board here.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
I see you and you see me. You show me who I could be. Watching you so quietly, I know who I want to be.
Now, printing is so affordable and convenient. You can print all
I just finger press these down.
instant ink.
These little ribbon cables, as they can be a little sticky, a little tricky to push down with a pry tool or an anti-static tool. A little bit of medium pressure onto them will get them to snap back into place. Don't be too forceful. You don't want to bend into the pins underneath.
Family's all new Tuesdays.
Alright, now we're going to stick down this cable that runs up the side here. Move this gold tape out of the way. Hopefully try to use it to stick this cable back down as well when we're finished. got a little ribbon cable clip at the end, which we'll go ahead and press down as well. Alright, we're going to go ahead and insert this antenna cable back into its slide port here. It just kind of pushes in up the right hand side of this phone, and you can connect it back onto the logic board here. These can be a little bit tricky. You want to be nice and careful with them. You don't want to bend this cable, as they are a little easy to bend. Just give it just pressure with your fingers. It'll snap back into spot as long as you get it lined up correctly.
Man, you know, get some flashing lights or some horns or something. I was just going to shut up now.
And we're going to put our buttons back on for the volume.
A little bored? Oh, no, man.
It does connect kind of back into its place here, so make sure little connections on the sides of the button do fit back into its respective port onto the mid-frame of the phone. We'll do the same thing for our power button here as well. Stick on the side back into its spot, and then insert and push down this upper side here as well.
Hey, I'm rooming with Newt's nephew, Fig. I wouldn't make fun of them. These kids are going to be the future leaders of this country.
Make sure everything's in place, and be careful of your black antenna cable that's inserted correctly as you start to push this frame of the back of the phone back into its respective spot here. It'll kind of snap back into place. Make sure the buttons are functioning properly. Go ahead and put our lower portion back in here. And it'll snap back into place as well. And we can start putting our screws back into the bottom portion of the back of the phone here. I'm going to put the battery in here real quick and just double check. Alright, looks like everything's going smoothly. We're looking good here. LCD power's on. It looks good. Alright, so we'll go ahead and finish inserting the screws into the back of the phone here. Now make sure you get these nice and tight, but not too tight. You just want to be able to get them out in the future, and you definitely don't want to strip them out. So you want to get them snug,
You've always had that skillet,
but not too much pressure.
You've never really known what it was for, why it was there. Now, Harold, now you know. It's for meat and noodles and liquid gold. Velveeta cheesy skillets, Harold. It's what your skillet is for. Liquid gold.
Alright, we are getting close to the end of our video here, just putting in our last couple screws. Hopefully you found this to be an effective video and helped you reassemble this phone. I didn't see a lot of very good tutorials on how to do this on YouTube, so I decided to make a video on it. If you do have any requests for phones, go ahead and just leave a comment for me or like this video. I'll definitely try to get as many phones as I can. I'll be posting a MacBook screen repair, a Nokia Lumia 1020 screen replacement, and a couple other phones that I have just kind of hanging out. It's also doing a few local repairs on a Samsung Galaxy S3, possibly an S4 as well. Just going to check the touch here, make sure that the screen's working, everything seems to be in working order. Our LG L9 is fixed. So again, if you guys like the video, go ahead and hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to me, as I'll have a lot of upcoming tutorials on fixing phones and doing additional replacements. Thanks for watching my video, and I'll see you next time.
And it's time to fight it.
Good energy is just what you want. It's how we help keep go-getters like you going and getting.